Well, I'm a bit screwed now because I'd planned to spend the first 20 minutes talking about myself, so not sure what we're going to do here. I need to start off before we do anything else by saying if anyone would like to make me feel better and move to, the first 3 or 4 rows, I would encourage you to do so, but only if you wish to. I also want to mention that this is a lecture hall, but I don't want to give a lecture. That's not. I'm not a teacher. That's not my background. I'd rather this be a little bit more of a conversation. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit. The topic of this discussion is purposefully vague: the importance of independence. So that can mean a lot of different things, and I'm going to interpret it a couple ways, and then talk a bit about the world of independent film. So, just to jump off, let's see, the next 20 minutes will be about me. So my background, as Robin mentioned, is I came from Eastern. I was a journalism major, and I was really interested in reporting and storytelling. And pretty soon after graduating and getting out into the professional world, I found myself really attracted to film. And it's an elusive thing. If any of you have been to some of the other panels here with Luke and Craig earlier, you sense the tone that the film industry is not a welcoming one. It's one that you have to overcome obstacles to get into oftentimes. That's true from a Hollywood perspective, but not quite as true from an independent perspective, from the point of view of just wanting to create film for film's sake. Less the commercial, more the artistic. So as I started learning about film, watching more film, and kind of absorbing it, I found myself really drawn to a lot of independent cinema and films that weren't being shown at the local multiplex. So I just use that as my departure point so that you understand my background of how I even got involved in this. I'd never even been to a film festival before until I covered one when I was based in LA, and I covered the Sundance Film Festival. And I attended, and it was the Sundance was the biggest film festival in the country. It was the very first festival I ever went to. And it was there that I was really exposed to all the different segments of the independent film world: the producers, the sales agents, the filmmakers, the distributors, the publicists, a whole gamut. And I started to see that there was perhaps a place for me in that independent world. And that's led me a few years later now. I do run this film festival in North Carolina, which has been around 10 years. It's my 3rd year as the director. And my job is, as Ron mentioned, is to program the festival, to find the films for it, but also to raise the money for it. Matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, I launched our 2008 fiscal year 2009 donor campaign in the midst of a recession, which is a fantastic time to ask people for money. But we've become a festival that's very successful in what we do. We show a lot of international films, films that just come from outside the mainstream that are escaping the regular multiplex. And that's kind of where I'd like to start off with discussing, is that kind of film. I really want to talk first about kind of the importance of film. You're all here, obviously, because cinema, in some sense, has an importance in your life, or it means something to you. Film is an incredible medium. The impact is immediate, and it has a power and an immediacy that you can find in other art forms, but it's just not quite like it is in film. We were discussing it on the way here, and cinema really is the best way to get inside the artist's head. After you've sat down and watched an hour and a half film, you've just been immersed in that artist's world. And you can do it in theater, you can do it in concerts and in other live performance and in paintings, but it's just not quite the same as a passive absorber of what's happening up on the screen. So film, to me, has developed into this really powerful tool. I see probably on average between 300 and 500 films a year, documentaries, student films, narrative features, and I see all kinds of films from all kinds of places. And the films that I see are sort of a window into all these places and people and experiences that I would have never had access to. And I think that is actually the central theme of what I'm going to use today, and that is that independence in cinema is really what that leads to is diversity of voices, of perspectives, and of opinions. Independence at its core means alternative and additional and nuanced ways of looking at things. We all know that at the multiplex, You know, any given weekend, you can see lots of entertainment. Pardon me. You can see, you know, the new Batman movie. You can see all the comic book characters of the rainbow. You can see, you know, the big splashy things, the new Atonement, the new Keira Knightley film, the new Tom Cruise film. And those are great, and they have a place in the world. And I love some of those just as much as other folks do. But the independent film world, which presents a broader spectrum of the world and windows into places that we don't see every day, I think has a place that is often overlooked. So I'm going to get back to that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to discuss the different sort of facets of the film industry as it relates to the independent cinema world. But I want to talk for just a moment about art. Touring this facility today, it's a really impressive facility. And it underscores this thought that I have that art is, well, first of all, art, not all film is art. I think we can all agree to that. But some film is art. Art is subjective, and if I mention any film titles here as being either good or bad, that's either my opinion or one that I've agreed with that somebody else said. It's by no means correct. So when I make fun of the new Batman movie or Spider-Man or whatever, I don't mean it as a slight or that I know what I'm talking about. It just means that's my opinion, and you all obviously have your own. But when you have, the thing to keep in mind is that art can't be forced to happen. Art is something that just happens. Cinema isn't something that can be made to be good. And for an example of this, I think it's good to look at Sergei Eisenstein, who made, for instance, Battleship Potemkin, which is one of the classic films and one of the classic directors of all time, and whose work still inspires to this day. And scenes and cuts and styles of filmmaking that he sort of originated and invented are still used throughout cinema today. And he came from a very oppressive, brutal regime, which was very restrictive, constrictive, and had very regimented rules and ideologies to work within. And yet, out of that came this beautiful, flowering, blossoming vision. And throughout his career, he demonstrated that time and time again, that he was able to just pull from the ether these visions and this creation that was inspiring and we celebrate to this day. Now, if you look on the other side of that, compare that to George Lucas. Here's a man who made, you know, untold millions, and then when it came time to go back to make Star Wars, his new trilogy, he literally had the pocketbook. He had the ability to fund anything in the world that he wanted. He had the world at his fingertips. He could make anything he wanted. The sky was the limit. And he created the 3 new Star Wars movies. And I think we'd be very hard-pressed to find people who really, truly could call that art, what he created. So it's an example of a restrictive world where the least likely chance that something beautiful would emerge is where some of the most enduring classic things came from. And then another place where you had, in the future with Lucas, where you had the unlimited opportunities where it in a way fell flat. And again, I want to underscore, when we talk about art and cinema, I don't mean that films that are not art are not good, because that's also not a fair thing to say. Pardon me. So that's the thing that we know as artists or as critical watchers of cinema, is that art and cinema, great cinema, as in great art, requires talent and it requires vision. But I think also important is perspective. And again, that's what the idea of independence brings to this. In the independent film world, which is existing concurrent and overlapping with the mainstream world that we're all familiar with, cinema happens and is shown and exhibited around the world at festivals and in art houses. It's made by people in Charleston, Illinois, to Los Angeles, to Bangkok, to the furthest reaches of Africa. It's cinema that happens from all areas.